The first few lyrics of the Funhouse theme tell you all you need to know. Wacky, fun, crazy. It's outrageous. Funhouse, a whole lot of fun. Prizes to be won. Now, only one of those things is true of the high-tech expressions game on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it's not that there are prizes to be won, unless that prize is the abject disappointment in yourself for purchasing such a substandard game. The lyric that applies to both the TV show and the video game is this: it's outrageous, for truly once you've seen it, it is. If you're a bit more youthful than the majority of my viewers, you may not be familiar, but we used to love covering children with slime in the late 80s and early 90s. And no, it had nothing to do with Jimmy Savile. Funhouse was a children's television quiz show that first emerged from its carapace on American television in 1988 via Fox TV. It was presented by the very youthful J.D. Roth, who was just 19 at the start of the show's run, and it was a gaudily coloured, loud assault on your sugar-addled senses. It was the late 80s, early 90s distilled into its child-damaging purest form. The giant ziggurat that stood in the centre of the studio, full of crash pads and those little balls you get in the pits at daycare centres. It was a temple that was full of high energy, kids covered in slime, and nursed back to health by dancing twin cheerleaders. Goodness me, so 90s. The premise was two teams of two comprised of a boy and a girl, one team clad in yellow and one team clad in red. Challenges would start with answering questions, then various challenges would occur, usually with the kids running around and getting covered in slime or trash, looking for prize tokens to get them through to that vital last round. The challenge in the go-karts was an ever-present thing, but all the other challenges would change up on a weekly basis, with the producers of the television show finding new ways to torture children with gunge. Once the gunge had settled, it was time for the winners to enter the eponymous funhouse. The funhouse was where the prizes were, with prize tags hidden throughout its imposing structure. Bikes, super soakers, mega drives, theme park tickets, CD players, CRT televisions, why, they were all on offer for those fleet of foot and hardy of soul. It was hyper-Americana and bloody amazing to boot. And it will come as no surprise to you to learn that every kid in Britain actually wished they were American around this time. Very much so in the late 80s and early 90s, I'd say. And if you were a child at that point and you're claiming otherwise, you're a liar. Or your parents were responsible and made you read books instead, rather than just sit you down in front of the telly. And so, of course, it translated very well to us Brits, with our bloody pogs and our garbage pail kids and our love of American things like hyper-colour t-shirts that were ruined approximately after you washed it for the first time. So yes, we lapped it up. In fact, we loved it even more than the Americans that gave it to us. What with their short attention spans and all. Over there, it only lasted 3 years, whereas ours ran for a decade. Our one was presided over by the most famous haircut of that generation, the mullet. The mullet, which wore DJ Pat Sharp for the duration of the show, was run on ITV by Scottish Television from February 1989 to December 1999. It had everything the US version had. The bright colours, the volume, the gunge, the physicality, the grandeur, the Grand Prix, and we even had our own version of twin cheerleaders in the form of Melanie and Martina Grant. They had a strange career trajectory, those two, singing Every Sperm is Sacred in Monty Python's Meaning of Life, allegedly appearing somewhere in Tim Burton's Batman movie, but I'm buggered if I can find them, and they released an album in Japan. But never mind these dad-pleasing clones. When I was 10, I didn't care about them and their long legs. I, along with countless others, instead would have given our hairless scrotums to go on that show and compete in its many challenges. It was on Nightmare's level, maybe. What Nightmare lacked in slime, it made up for in bad CG. But I digress. The Funhouse license bore 2 games, published by High-Tech Entertainment. There was an MS-DOS version that came out at roughly the same time as the NES game we're covering today. That version had a trivia round and a selection of arcade games, including the Funhouse Maze. It was alright. Outside of Funhouse, High-Tech Expressions released a whole host of licensed titles on the 8 and 16-bit formats, from Barbie, Tom and Jerry and Beethoven the Dog, to things like The Hunt for Red October. High-Tech Expressions eventually folded at the dawn of the 32-bit era in 1995. Which means we never got the polygonal Beethoven the Dog game that we all wanted. God damn you, you swines. The NES version of Funhouse was put together by Real-Time Associates, who were still about in 1995, and so did give us 32-bit games. Thanks for the Elmo PlayStation game, fellas. I'll be sure to play that at some point. I won't. Funhouse is a 72-level top-down 2D scrolling shoot-'em-up stroke puzzle game, with the player assuming the role of one of the child contestants from the show. You're tasked with twatting a number of targets with some deft tomato tossing in this game. When all the targets have been struck, a key opens up in the final target that, upon collection, takes you to the next room, and so on and so on. If that sounds a bit too straightforward, allow me to sprinkle Lego bricks in front of your bare feet. Some levels will add a numerical order element to the targets, placing them in an unusual sequence and therefore making it much harder to clear the level. The timer for these levels is unremittingly tight. But the obstacles to success do not end there. The ground is a bit like your dad as a child, as it's rarely present, often replaced by things like conveyor belts or ice or pools of slime, which will affect your progress. Which is further hampered by the utilisation of tank controls and the fact that your character is on rollerblades, so he has the turning circle of a fat whale and inertia reminiscent of Mercury on the back of a wet dolphin. And the rooms are full of banana cannons and sentient slime. Sentient slime! I've seen both versions of the blob, and I know that children should not be anywhere near this skin-melting horror. The enemies will either hinder your progress by pushing you into the walls, the conveyor's ice or the floor slime, or they will drain away your precious time, and you need that time. I bet you thought this game sounded easy when I was talking about just throwing pre-ketchup lumps at discs, didn't you? Luckily, you've got JD Roth giving you encouragement between each level, because sadly, a UK release never happened, and therefore the mullet nor its Pat Sharp accessory never made it onto the NES. JD, he looks either like a youthful Tim Allen here or Simon Parkin, and I can't decide which, and I'm probably wrong about that anyway. My eyes are old and my brain is addled by time. What do you want from me? Anyway, JD Roth has seen that this 72-level maze is probably child abuse, and so has decided to throw various power-ups around the arena to assist our boys and girls that are competing. He's like the Oscar Schindler of 90s attitude telly. There's speedy skates, clocks to increase your time, and coins to give you a score boost and potentially the chance of some extra lives. And the game you see before you, it's not just one event, it's the whole game. And it's fine, I guess. It reminds me of something like a Codemasters £2.99 Spectrum budget game, except it's an expensive Nintendo cartridge. But that's not the main issue, is it? It's not Funhouse. Like, at all. There's no trivia round, there's no multiple challenges, There's not even a fun house. Well, apart from the static screen between rounds showing that great monolith. There it is, looking all diverse with like multiple levels and different things to do. Not replicated in the game though, is it? The MS-DOS game at least attempts to replicate the TV show's varied rounds, and I'm not even convinced there was ever a challenge in the show that involved throwing tomatoes at targets while on rollerblades, even after a Google search. Tell me in the comments if you think differently, if you know differently, if there was a challenge in Funhouse where there was a kid on roller skates throwing tomatoes at targets. I don't mind if it's the British version, the American version, or even the version from Tajikistan. I don't think that there was ever an event on Funhouse, any of the versions, where kids on rollerblades were charged with throwing tomatoes at targets. There's not even a crowd of screaming nipplings, just blobs and shapes as backgrounds. So it does have slime, it does have the logo, it has JD Roth, and it has the level start sequences which show you the funhouse that you'll never get to explore. But apart from that, there's nothing here that connects this game with the television show. Like maybe, I guess, this could have been a challenge on the TV show, but it wasn't. And to have the whole game as it, well, that's not really enough, is it? If you purchased this game, it's because you're part of the 99.9% of kids who wanted to go on the show, but never got to experience running around that great mythical wonderment that was the Funhouse and getting all those prizes. This game is bound to be a disappointment as a result. It seems to me that this game is one of those titles that started out as something else and then just got the license stapled onto it. And that's borne out actually by the fact that Real Time Associates released a very similar title on the Game Boy shortly after called Out of Gas that had nothing to do with Funhouse at all. All in all, it's a fairly playable title, but an absolutely egregiously cynical use of the Funhouse license. Though well done for the dad joke pun level names. Still, it's not enough for the mullet. He's not amused. Game Players magazine warned their readers accordingly in August 1991. They said, "We cannot really recommend this game and do believe that true fans should be warned not to expect the fast-paced action of TV's Funhouse." Oh well, let's try it again, shall we? Let's stick with early 90s slime and falling over. Next time when we play Mr. Blobby. Yes. Like, subscribe, and K, thanks, bye.